What's up, guys? I'm Nicole Rios, and I've got opinions. Today, we are going to talk about the only thing that's really happening right now, which is the government shutdown. We're going to talk about SNAP benefits, what happens on the first, how that's going to have an impact, what the leverage is here, what they're still trying to negotiate, what the Democrats are holding out for. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the healthcare situation and any other spin-off thoughts that I may have with my ADHD brain. But that's kind of what we're looking at for today. So to start it off, we're just going to bring up this story that I found. This is from USA Today. It says that the 42 million Americans who rely on the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, will go without their benefits come November 1st because the government shut down, according to a new message from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. This is a federal program that provides low-income families monthly benefits to afford healthy food. Should be used on healthy food. Will be now, right? So these are benefits that are given out every first of the month. We haven't seen a first of the month since the shutdown started. So this would be the first instance where we have a first of the month pass with the government shutdown, which means that there are 42 million people who rely on this supplemental nutrition assistance come November 1st. I think the interesting thing to think about here is that's a huge percentage of our population that's on food assistance. And there's a lot to be said about do all of these people actually need the assistance? B, what else is going on in our country that this percentage of our population needs assistance? I think those are interesting things that we need to look at. But secondarily, as a person who's married to someone who's a federal employee who relies on government pay for our income, we got paid, but we don't know if we're getting paid on the first. People who aren't active duty aren't being paid. My husband was waiting on a manning cycle that was supposed to come in that didn't come in. So he's working the job of 6 people. And that isn't, again, in all shapes and forms, like that's not ideal. We don't want anybody to be having to work under those conditions or to not be receiving food benefits or any of this situation. I honestly think that using these things as leverage points for the government to make a few political points is really frustrating. So the reason why the government is still shut down is because the Democrats and the Republicans can't agree on some of the rescissions that were made via Doge. Also, they're having a hard time agreeing on some of the Medicare reforms that were passed in the big beautiful bill. And by not signing this continuing resolution for the same budget funding that was Biden's last year of budget funding, so we've been here before, this is nothing new. They are holding it hostage, the Democrats are holding it hostage until the Republicans agree to specific extensions for the ACA tax credits and reversing some of the cuts that were done to Medicare and adding in work requirements. So let's cut back. We're going to talk about what happened here because I think that everybody needs some clarity. The ACA subsidies, the Affordable Care Act subsidies that are being paid to insurance companies in order for us to have lower premiums were always temporary. They were these specific ones that we're fighting over right now were enacted in 2021 under the American Rescue Plan Act. And that was specific to COVID, to getting everybody they could insured, so that if uninsured people overwhelmed the hospitals still had some way of getting paid. Okay. So we were able to ensure, change certain requirements. Okay. So let's talk about what those were. The first thing was they eliminated the income cap, where beyond a certain income, you didn't qualify for being able to get onto the ACA marketplace. That income cap was eliminated. And then secondarily, there was a premium contribution cap that was capped at 8.5% of your income. So if you were paying towards a healthcare premium, it couldn't go beyond that percentage of your income. Additionally, there's one other thing that was interesting here to me. Um, okay, so those, okay, so for instance, with the poverty cap changing, the income cap elimination, now 400% of the federal poverty level is the prior cap. So that means that a family of two people making more than 84,600 wouldn't qualify, and then four people, a four-person family making more than $128,600 wouldn't qualify. And so now those qualifications were changed in the premium tax credits. Additionally, so what then happens when these tax credits expire is that we revert back to pre-2021 regulations, requirements for qualifying to be in the marketplace. And so what happens now is that people who were, say, over that income cap that qualified during this period of time no longer qualify. So we hear scary things like 4.2 million people are going to lose health coverage. And that's true, but it's 4.2 million people who potentially were above the income cap to qualify for a subsidized healthcare plan. Or it's, okay, so 4.8 million becoming uninsured that paid zero cost for health insurance. And then 7.3 million people will lose subsidized coverage. So they got a plan at a cheaper rate because the government was paying the insurance company to offer a cheaper rate for that risk group. So I think what stands out to me is what we're talking about is just going back to a period of time before we had a pandemic, before we had to have emergency medical coverage for everybody in order to save the healthcare industry, essentially. I know it's hard to get something taken away once it's given to you. However, I think the spin that we need to remember here is that we are in a significant amount of debt. We have $38 trillion worth of federal debt. Ouch. Okay. And in the next, well, during the fiscal year 2025, over 20% of that debt needed to be refinanced. And by the end of this year, 1/3 of the debt, approximately $9.2 trillion, will have matured, which means that when all that money needs to be refinanced and our interest rates are as high as they are, we're paying that interest, guys. Okay, so we can't add anything else to our deficit right now. I get the valor of the Democrats trying to fight to maintain the closest we've been to universal health care in a really long time. I get that. My problem is that those tax credits were going to expire since 2021. And then they actually were only put on for 2 years in 2021. And then in 2022, they did the Inflation Reduction Act where they extended the tax credits. Okay? And they extended them till now. So we hear about people who are already receiving premium changes and mailings from their insurance companies talking about the cost is going to go up. And that's because these tax credits were set to expire in December anyway. This isn't a new thing based on this one bill. This was like since 2022 that they were going to expire this year. And we haven't done anything about getting them done yet. So, but now all of a sudden we're using that as a tactic. It's a no-go. So nothing would have changed. The only thing that would have changed is the work requirements. So now people who are able-bodied, who are on Medicare, have to at least do 20 hours of something, whether it be volunteering or working or school. They're just required to do 20 hours of something productive to maintain health coverage. I think that's reasonable. Um, what able-bodied person isn't doing 20 hours of productive anything? Maybe that's part of the reason why our society sucks these days. So anyway, to put a to wrap that all up, I think what is important to know is that A, what the Democrats want is to have all of the to extend these tax credits again. Okay, so for additional, who knows what period of time, so that premiums don't increase, and that and we maintain these subsidies, and that in addition to that, that the work requirements are taken off. Okay, so with that, that's $1 trillion worth of spending they want to put back in that we finally got off, and that's what the fight is over. Guys, 42 million people aren't going to have money for food. Why can't we just get the CR signed? The Republican perspective is, hey, if we sign the CR, which is the continuing resolution, which again is a reminder that it's just Biden's budget. It's the same budget as last year. We're just continuing it. The big beautiful bill is already signed, y'all. So just saying. So I don't think that it's right to be holding Americans' lives and as collateral for negotiations, especially when it's negotiations. Again, I think that you can claim valor for trying to argue that we should try and maintain the healthcare coverage that we currently have and keeping all these people insured and everything. And listen, I will hear out any argument. My problem is that deficit. My problem is having to refinance all this debt at these higher interest rates. My problem is looking at the fact that 4.8 million people are insured by a subsidized insurance that didn't need it before. I get trying to offer people cheaper health care again, but the ACA marketplace is for middle and lower income people to have access to care without restrictions. It wasn't for people who could have private or employer offered insurance to come and undercut some of these other risk groups. Just saying. So I don't know. I would be willing to bet the people that lose their coverage after these tax credits expire are people that can get private coverage. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'd be willing to bet it's not, because the ACA prioritizes lower and middle income people, and the income caps that changed and some of the restrictions that were put into the tax credit that had gotten moved or loosened being tightened isn't gonna it's gonna benefit the middle and lower income people. It's not gonna have a negative impact on them. So I think it's something that's being said to be like a scary thing, like all these people are going to lose coverage. And it is probably true that they'll lose coverage through the ACA marketplace, but it doesn't mean that they lose access to coverage privately. So anyway, that's that. Um, I just think that it's hard to knowing the fiscal situation that the country is in, it is hard to encourage us to continue spending on healthcare at the same rate that we did during a full-blown global pandemic. And I think that spending on the healthcare during the global pandemic was the right thing to do. But just continuing down the road at those spending levels, like we're not, like the dollar isn't devaluing by the minute, it's just not a good long-term policy. We can work on a long-term solution for the healthcare problem, but right now it's not continuing emergency funding in a non-emergency situation. It's just not that. So that's my takeaway. Also, Schumer and and Johnson, can y'all just come together, please? Can we have and Thune, can we have a conversation? Because you can't let these people go without their food, y'all. Seriously. And you are the ones that will look like the bad guy. Whoever, listen, here's the problem with this situation. This is my political analysis part here, guys. This is my opinions. If the Republicans let people on Snap go without their food, they're the bad guy. It doesn't matter whether they're at fault or not, they're the bad guy. If people aren't fed, you're the bad guy. You're in charge. It doesn't matter. You listen, the blessing that came when somehow you guys figured out how to pay the active duty army on the 15th and we didn't miss a check, I was praising y'all, but I am telling you, if these people don't get their food and we have starving Americans because you're trying to show off politically, you're done. It's the wrong message. That's not MAGA. And I know y'all are out there trying to get all this trade situation settled and trying to get a deal with Asia, but I'm telling you, don't let your people go hungry at home because we are so tilted towards communism right now. We are so tilted towards socialism. The last thing you need is for them to think that you're not for them or you're trying to be out here letting them starve. So I will tell you, we need to get that figured out. We need to come together before the 30th. The people need to be fed. So I'm making a radical call to Congress that you guys need to show up. If at this point, I know that Trump likes to beat his chest and be tough and strong, but I can tell you that I also believe he has a heart, and I don't, there's going to be something that happens. I have to believe that because I don't believe that they're going to let the first go. I don't believe they're going to let people go hungry. They have to know what a political like suicide it would be, and I just think that they know what's at stake. With my fingers crossed, I say that. So we'll have to see how that plays out. I hope that something happens. And I hope that we can at least agree to reopen the government and maybe take 4 weeks to talk about which ACA tax credits to keep and which not to. Maybe we can cut that package from 1 trillion to 500 billion, y'all. Oh my God, that's so much money. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that our deficit is a big problem, and I know that the more that we come up and have to refinance it, the higher that interest payment gets. And looking forward, these were already going to expire. Again, this was COVID stuff, guys. We're not in COVID anymore, and we've got to get it together. We've got to pull it back. The government can't be your daddy. So that's my TED Talk for this week. Wellness work for the week. We're gonna work on our breathing this week, guys, because a lot of people are stressed out, a lot of people are freaking out, and a lot of times that can transfer into us holding our breath. And it makes us feel braced or ready for impact. And when we're stressed, we're more likely to be tense and holding and tight. And so one skill that I love that I use all the time is called box breathing. And the idea is that you will inhale for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 4, exhale for a count of 4, and then hold breath out for a count of 4. And if you do that for 4 cycles, you might be able to go from an elevated state to a much more calm state. So when you notice this week that you're holding your breath, maybe you don't even notice you do it. So step one, identifying that you hold your breath, that you're stressed out, that you're tense, and try to build in some of that box breathing. Sometimes I use it right before I go to bed. Sometimes I use it when I'm in the shower and I'm just trying to de-stress. And sometimes I use it when I notice that I've gotten into ruminating thought. And I just try a 4 box breath and try and refocus my mind. So that's my tip this week. If you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to reach out. If you have any interesting interviews that you think I should do, feel free to reach out. I'm working on a much longer healthcare project right now that I'm excited to bring you, hoping to find some solutions on that and get some forward momentum. So stay tuned, y'all. Uh, love you. Happy Monday. Hope you guys have a great week. Peace. Thanks for another great Monday monologue.